flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. First thing will be to approve last week's minutes. Don's moved.
All second.
And seconded. While still reading.
No, I'm go ahead. I'm here tonight.
Well, I didn't know if you've already read.
I'd already read them, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, John moved, Tim seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Consent agenda. Upon the request of Coffee County Housing Authority Board, move to authorize and direct the chairman to sign the real estate mortgage release, acknowledging satisfaction in full debt secured by Teresa Heber. Physical address is 207 West 6, Lebo, Kansas, lots 4 and 5 in block 41 in West Lebo, Coffee County, Kansas, according to the recorded plat thereof. Book volume M285, page 410 through 411, all the records and registers of deeds, Coffee County, Kansas.
I'll move.
Reg moved,
All second.
Tim seconded, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Now, our miscellaneous, we got handed one earlier. I moved it to the front. It's the Corona. I think it's. I moved it to the front in case I lost it. So. It's the coronavirus relief fund memorandum of agreement round 4. I went and spoke with Amber to see if she had anything to add to this. She said nothing unusual to report. So. Motion 2020 Coronavirus Relief Fund Memorandum of Agreement Round 4. Upon the recommendation of the Interim Emergency Management Director and with approval from the Coronavirus Relief Task Force, move to authorize and direct the chairman to sign the memorandums of agreement between Coffee County and approved recipient of Coronavirus Relief Task Force grant funds. Those recipients are Kelsey Everhart, Kelsey's KinderCare, and then just FYI, the total dollar amount she is getting is $3,571. The second recipient would be Marcel Moldover, Sally's Auto Repair. FYI, the amount received will be $7,995.74.
Who's that auto repair at?
I'm not aware.
Lebo.
Waverly?
Lebo.
Is it Waverly?
Sorry?
Lebo,
Lebo.
Lebo.
the old DNS station.
All second.
Ready to move. Tim is seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Move to reappoint Samantha Kuhlman, Troy Friend, and Carol Toy as members of the Coffee County Tourism and Visitors Board to a 2-year term effective January 1st, 2021 and ending December 31st, 2022. I'll move.
Second.
Don seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion 5-0. Hospital board. Assume, does anyone have a recommendation?
How long has Dennis Young been on the hospital board?
2 terms.
I'm sorry,
2 terms.
2 terms.
Mhm.
6 years.
I've known Dennis and the whole Young family, biggest end of their life. He's even employed there at co-op for a number of years driving a semi, so. Adam, appears his applicant's got some good qualifications there. Well, I've never met Adam, so I don't know nothing about him. And I do, my opinion, that Dennis is willing to continue to serve. I support Dennis to be reappointed.
I don't know Dennis. I do, on the other hand, know Adam. I know he'd asked it for the vacancy come available, that he would be interested, and he, like you said, he does have a good,
Yeah.
good write-up, a good,
Yeah, there's no good writer.
so. And there is nobody in District 2. We have 1, 4, 3, and 5, several out of 5, District 5. 4 of them to be exact. I don't know if that, as far as dividing them up in districts, matters a great deal.
I don't know how much value there is to have every district fully represented. That's just like us 5 commissioners, we all represent a district, but technically we represent the whole county.
That's true.
And that's kind of how I look at it on these boards like this. Yeah, it probably would be good to have every district represented.
I know both of the gentlemen, and the only thing I can say about Dennis Young, he was on there when the hospital board kind of brought us out of a depression. And I wouldn't have any problem with giving him another term now that we have a new administrator, and see how that goes. That's my thinking.
Any other discussion? So based off of what
So
I'm not sure that,
I don't see a application from Dennis as,
I don't either.
Well, since he's the current member, we don't require them to put in an application.
Last week, or 2 terms didn't have.
but do we know whether
He wants to be reappointed.
he wants to be? Okay.
I know the 2 candidates we had last year on 2 of them. Last week, we didn't have an application on either one of them.
Right.
I don't know what the correct procedure is on that. Did one of us need to just go ahead and make a motion on that?
I would say, I'm not quite sure how to look at this. Like I say, I do not know Mr. Young. I'm sure he's a qualified individual. I've known Adam for quite some time. So I'd say it's a toss of a coin for me.
I'll go ahead and move to reappoint Dennis Young as a member of the Cobb County Hospital Board to a 3-year term effective January 1st, 2021, and ending December 31st, 2024.
Don is moved.
All second.
Tim is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Don. Upon the recommendation of the Fiber Optic Board and approval of the county attorney pursuant to paragraph 1.17 of the agreement between TelXP, formerly known as Valmet, that was formerly known as TerraWorld Incorporated, and Coffee County, Kansas, with said agreement for providing internet service to Coffee County residents and businesses utilizing the Coffee County fiber optic network. This agreement will be for the remainder of a 1-year term from July 1st, 2020, ending June 30th, 2021, with current subscriber rates as noted in attached documents. We've been discussing this, and we went over the documents last week. Wade, do you have anything to add?
No, I've been in contact with Doug and Brad. There's been additional discussion that's gone on. I'm seeing a new entity out of Iola contacted, I think, Donna. And then that entity was, the contact information was exchanged with Doug. Doug talked to them late Friday afternoon or evening. Doug contacted me. We talked, and I think that entity out of Iola may put in a bid when the bidding process starts in June, but right now it's not an issue. So I don't see an issue with moving forward with the motion. All that's happening is TelXP is standing in place of Valmet, which was the prior provider, in sort of an emergency situation that needs to be taken care of, or our county, the county customers who are receiving those services now are in jeopardy of not receiving those services. And that, with the coronavirus, with people operating businesses from home, doing schooling from home, I think the recommendation is to move forward so those services are not disrupted. And if Brad has anything else to add, I don't know if he does.
Just, it will be open for bid again, before the end of the term, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I will move.
I'll second.
Fred seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Move to authorize the direct chairman to sign the letter of support for the grant application of Coffee County Transportation to continue funding from the state of Kansas for fiscal year beginning July 2021 and ending June 2022. I so moved.
All second.
Lenny seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I don't remember from a year ago. Is this an annual grant application we fill out?
Yes,
I figured that. Suspected it was.
she fills it out each year. She does quite a job.
Is the dollar amount about the same this year?
If my memory serves me correct.
I don't recall.
She got quite a bit. I think that's that's a lot of stuff for your addition. Well, she got some federal money on that one too. She does quite a job up there. Well, that gets us to the miscellaneous motions and minutes, so it's like Wayne's up.
Good morning.
Good.
Morning, Wayne.
Morning.
No short meeting this morning.
It's not.
You're going one of the programs, we know when to cut you off.
I was here, you only got till 9:30. There's nobody after you.
Well, one, we have some contracts, so that's one of the motions that we have, so I'll just go ahead, and they have been labeled as far as where to sign. And two, we have a request to go ahead and move forward on a right-of-way permit, road permit. So we'd just like to go ahead and just put those in the book, and so we stapled those. Basically, it's a drop for a home cable per se, telephone. And then the other would be a special issue check. And this would be to close out the project for the 6 bridges. And so this is a special issue check. And then that's one of my discussion or talking points as well, so fails. So with that, I'll just jump into the engineer's report. One road permit, basically hand delivered. Two zoning permits, part of your original packet. Then the next one would be no report at this point on the landfill. The next one would be to move into the signing of the agreement of the asphalt project for milling, grinding, and leveling the shoulders on Old Highway 50 from 75 Highway to Fauna Road. That would be the contract that you have that's being passed around. And then the next motion would be for a request for a half-ton 4x4 pickup truck. So moving into the motions then, that's where we have, is the first motion is 2020-50, and that would be approval and signing of the contracts. Now, you've already approved the project prior, so at this point, we're signing the contracts.
I'm just curious if we already approved the project, what we got approved to sign the contract.
That's, yeah, it's just basically approving the bids.
I'm just,
Yeah,
another one of those questions in my mind. So.
yes.
Okay, but, motion 2020-50, based upon the recommendation of county engineers, approval has to be formed by county attorney, authorize and direct chairman to sign contract documents with Kellogg Construction Incorporated for project A2006-C asphalt project for milling, grinding, and leveling shoulders on Old 50-75 Highway to Fauna Road. Fred has moved,
All second.
Tim seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0.
Okay. And the next one would be the basically request. This is something we put in for the budget for 2020. And so as we're going down our equipment list, we had budgeted for approximately $45,000 for a pickup truck. And so this would be a 4x4 half-ton pickup truck that would be brought into the fleet, and then other trucks would be basically rotated down and then eventually out.
Where's this truck gonna go?
At this point, the discussion was that it was going for, going to mine, and then mine was going to possibly Ryan or Jeff. So,
Weren't you guys all driving pretty new trucks anyway?
I have the data onto it. As far as Ryan's truck, I can't tell you, Bob. If you want the years onto him, I can go back and give you what the years would be. But I'm pretty sure it's a couple years old. But once again, those trucks get handed down to the work crews. So we have trucks that basically deliver folks to their mowers. We have trucks that are doing the flagging. These are not necessarily new trucks. These are trucks that's just been handed down. And that's how we rotate our trucks.
Was T51, is it in bad shape or is it just old?
At this point, it would be the worst one in the fleet.
Are we having problems with it?
I don't have the data on that, Bob. I do not, I don't believe, yes, I do. Well, I have the odometer is 221,900 miles. And it was a 2000, as you said, it's 2008. So I think possibly would be the mileage is what we're looking at.
Any
And
further?
this was set up in your budget
Yes, sir.
to, yeah, even though it's got 220,000 miles on it, that's not saying it's not, still can't be productive. But we also got to keep a rotation in place too.
Mhm.
You know, and I've never seen your exact rotation program. I know when I was at the elevator, every vehicle we had was on a rotational plan. We occasionally would move it back a year or two if it wasn't used as much as we thought it was gonna be. But I think you almost gotta have all of the equipment on some kind of a plan. Yes, that plan can change.
Any more discussion? Based on the recommendation of the county engineer, move to approve the county engineer's request to solicit formal bids for one 4x4 half-ton pickup for best bid with options of trade-in of T-051, the 2008 Chevrolet 2500, VIN number ending in 2071. Funds to be paid from the general fund public works equipment line item. I guess I'll move.
I'll second.
Tom seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and the next motion would be approving, basically BG Consultant Engineers for, the engineering services, for bridge replacement 6A. Once again, this is a, off-system bridge program that was approved and selected by KDOT for 80/20 funding. And this would be part of that, funding that we would have basically allowed to us, for the services. And so,
Was that bridge been let yet?
no, it has not, but the engineering services, what they're doing here is they're actually going to be doing the surveying and the design of the structure for 6A.
Did we bid on, I thought one time we were going to bid on engineering services. Seems like lately we've just appointed someone. I thought we were going to start, a couple of years ago, we decided that we were going to start taking bids for engineering services. We have 3 different companies that we've actually worked with.
That's kind of when it's kind of came back around. Initially, it was accepted as professional services did not require engineering, basically the bidding process. And then it went to where we were asking to go ahead and go through the bidding process. And then there was discussion about basically intellectual property, that you cannot just necessarily bid intellectual property to make it compare apples to apples. And then it came back around to say, okay, we're dealing with professional services, so that's not necessarily a bidding process. And recently you have done some as well that's basically worked off of professional services, not a bidding process. And so we're doing the same thing here. Is as you know, I have 3 consultants I try to rotate around. I use BG Consultants. I do Cook Flat Strobel, and then Schwab Eaton are the 3 regional consultants that I feel that has done most of the work in Coffee County. And the next rotation would be, Bob, is those 2 bridges down there by Gridley, the ones we talked about before. I'm looking at here in the next probably 6 months is probably getting a bid quote from Schwab Eaton, trying to rotate it around.
Probably should know what Bridge 6A is, but I don't recall. What,
That's the one on Old 50, what we call the Koopman Bridge. It's the only wood structure that leads into the residence.
the one we was talking about last week?
Yes, sir.
You know, just to engineer a bridge, is that a little bit, 46,800?
Well, what they're gonna do
That
is,
looks like it's a little bit high, or quite a bit high.
I agree with you, Don. I do. But when you're dealing with the state and you're dealing with the state funds and the federal funds that go along with it, one of the things, if I'll just walk you through the process or walk through the process for everybody, you know, for the public as well, is one is they have to go out and survey it. Okay, so they come back to survey it. Then, once they survey it, they draw it up, and then the engineer comes up with the design. They come up with the design of the structure. They come up with basically the hydraulics of the structure. They're also to come up and have the permits for Division of Water Resources for the structure. And then they're also to provide documents for review for KDOT. So KDOT has what they'll do is an office check, and then they will do a field check, and then they will come back and say, okay, now we have a finished project that we will accept for you to go ahead and let out. And so all of these things are done with basically, with the federal funds attached to it as far as the project itself. So as you have the federal funds attached to this, there's more work that's being done than what we have to do internally, necessarily, because we basically approve our own projects, but this is going through a third party, which is basically the state's approval. And so that's part of the reason why the cost is up there. It's not necessarily out of the ballpark, but I'd say it's kind of in the high medium perhaps.
What's your projected cost to replace that bridge?
Basically, when we had came back, it was close to that $300,000 here last week, is some of the discussion we had.
289 or something like that, so that's why I was looking at that, usually the
Yeah,
engineering.
that's right at 20%, a little
Yeah.
bit short of 20% to me, that's a little bit,
Yeah.
but you get more people involved in it, everybody wants a bigger piece of the cake or bigger piece of the pie.
And that's where they're gonna have more time involved into it, is providing those documents for them, but.
The only thing I remember when we put it out on bids, we got quite a variance in bids. Now it looks like that we're just letting the engineering company tell us whatever they want to charge us. And we really don't have any say-so in it.
That's part of the professional services. Now, what they do have on that, Bob, is in the contract itself, is they will have their hourly rates. And even though this is an estimate, it says not to exceed, is what they'll do is through their billing process, they'll actually submit us how many hours that the professional engineer was on, how many hours the surveyor was out there doing the work. And all of those things actually can be tracked, and they actually can be audited by the state, which sometimes they are. Is actually the state will come back to the consultant, not us, but will actually come back to the consultant and actually ask them for their time cards, what they spend on the project. And so there is an accountability. Now the question is there hourly rates outside of basically the norm? No, not necessarily. We don't see that as, on this one, I don't have that basically being a red flag for me.
Well, for me, when you quote them as professional service or professional, I don't know, it's gonna take me X amount of hours to survey, it's gonna take me X amount of hours to design it, it's gonna take X amount of work to do whatever. So it should be a firm quote, in my opinion.
And we do have,
Maybe I don't know enough about bridge construction, but,
and we do have a fee, what they call a lump sum fee based on those services. So like project surveying, they have 11,500, that's part of exhibit 2. They do have the field check plans of 12,500. They have the office check plans of 15,200, right-of-way staking of 2,000 per occurrence. Final check plans, 3,000. The letting of the plans, 2,600. So they do have what their estimated cost is, or their lump sum cost is for each one of those services. But it's still based on their hourly rate.
and we still paying 80% of it, I still say that's a lot of money, I'm paying an alley. I
Well,
mean, I might ask Wade about that, but,
sure, ask.
I mean, Wade, basically, we're just handling a project for $46,000, is that,
That's where I'm at.
I mean, that's what we're doing, we're saying here, there's $46,000 to do this. And maybe this, maybe this is the way you've always done it, but I'm not saying I agree with it, I guess.
We agreed, as commission agreed 3-4 years ago, that we were gonna start putting these engineering firms out on bids. I think it worked, and now all at once we've moved back to where just come in with a recommendation and that's it. And I have been to some of the other cities in council, and they have put theirs out on bids also and came back with better rates than they would have otherwise too. So I mean, it doesn't matter to me, you can call them engineers, you call them professionals, whatever you want. I still think that we as a county, putting those people on bids, and we should be getting the best deal for the county. Now, it may not always be the cheapest, but we need to get the best deal for the county.
So I'm not sure historically what's happened. I know, at least in the last 2 years, what's been the practice, Wayne? Has it been to put it out for bid, or has it been to go under the professional services? And then the historical timeline, in my mind, is important, because if it's been done one way in the past and then it was done, that was done in a different way under what the county policy allows, and the professional services language, there needs to be internal consistency. If I understand what Wayne said at the beginning, it had been done under the professional services provision. It switched at some point in time, and when it switched, then it went out for bids, and then for whatever reason, it switched back to professional services, and that to its current state.
And I don't remember us ever being informed that it went back to the professional service. As far as I knew, we were still putting it out for bids, but now I'm finding out that we're not. We're just basically appointing people now, so.
Didn't B&G do the overlay project on Bridges?
Yes, they did. If I
So
may.
that's not rotating, because they just did a project and now we're going to do another one.
Well, if I may,
If that's what
Okay.
you mean by rotating.
there is some rotation. If I may go just a little bit further. What you have is what we call intellectual property of professionals, okay? So for example, what does the intellectual property mean? It means that when they see a project before them, they're gonna come up with ideas, solutions, how to resolve the problem, okay?
That's all fine and dandy, but $46,000.
Well,
Intellectual, professional, whatever you want to call it. I'm saying $46,000.
but if,
So.
yeah, if I can.
Is Cook Flat Strobel a professional and an intellectual individual that they give us a bid to?
If I can, to go a little further, if you wanted to find comparison, say for example, your architectural services, did you take architectural and did you bid it out? So for the jail. That's professional services. It's intellectual property. What you're dealing with is basically you're coming up, you're asking this architect, which is no different than a professional engineer, which is also licensed by the Board of Technical Professions. Okay. So you're asking them is to say, okay, I want you to bid intellectual property. Okay. I'm saying you can't bid intellectual property. Now, I'm going to turn it around just one more. When we did the community comprehension plan, that wasn't bidding intellectual property. That was having 3 consultants pitch what they could do for you, okay? In their pitch, basically, they come up with examples of what they have done and ideas of what they would like to do for your community. So now what you have done is basically you went through the bidding process at that point, per se. It was not necessarily bidding, because once again, you looked at their price. We didn't get the low bid, okay? Was Cook Flat? I don't know if Cook Flat was the low bid or not. I'd have to go back and research that one. But the selection of Cook Flat was on this community project, comprehension project, was based on what did the cities feel that which consultant they wanted to work with. That was the selection of that one. When we did the 6 bridges, yes, BG was picked on that. But BG actually had developed a lot of the overlay that we were doing on the bridges. They had developed actually a process working with KDOT to come up and actually test these bridges for corrosive salts that was in the bridge deck. Okay? And so, Moni at that time was selected to go ahead and do the project plans for the 6 bridges. So that's how that was selected. The bidding process, last bidding process we had for consultants was on the bridge inspections. That is not intellectual property. Any consultant underneath these guidelines can do bridge inspections underneath the KDOT inspections. Up to this point, the only other bridge design that I had was the one, I believe it was down on Iris. And I believe, Tom, you had done the work on it. That was the last consultant design structure that we had, which once again was an off-system bridge funded project.
What about Garner?
I think it was Garner. You remember where that was at, Tom? You guys had done the concrete.
Yeah, it's down on the county line.
Yeah, okay. What about the one
That was a little large.
down there by Brian Murray? That's
I had done all the designs up to this
You
point.
done that one? And when that was, we did that was on the 80-20 project with the state?
All the 80-20 projects we had for the state was consultant
Right, that's what I mean, yeah.
based. Yeah, any one of the ones that we had the funds from the, was done by consultants.
And I think if you look, Cook Flat was the low bid that you had recommended PG, and we went with the low bid on this other deal.
For the community development?
Community development, I believe it was.
Well, but if you research, and you're researching it too, you asked me to go through the cities and get a consensus from the cities, which ones they wanted.
And it was a toss-up.
It was, yeah, it was a 3-3.
Yeah,
It was a toss-up.
so, yeah, that's what I kind of remember on that. But the bidding process we had on bridge inspections, yes, not intellectual property. The selection process for design, for the most part, has been really, here's the company that we're working with and trying to do the rotation. Yes, BG, you would say, okay, why do we not have Schwab Eaton on this one? Mine was to put Schwab Eaton on those 2 bridges, which is gonna be $1 million project on the 2 bridge replacements, and put them on those, and that was gonna be a bigger project. We could probably see at that point, we could probably see closer to more like $65,000 to $70,000 for those fees.
And I kind of go back to what Tom said. I think that any 3 of those consultants we used could have came up with a number of approximately what it's going to be for it. And I really don't have any problem with checking with the others. I know they don't want to because they don't want to have to go through the bidding process. But as a county, I think that we should be going through the bidding process.
If we put this out for bids, how much is this gonna delay the project?
Well, it can delay the project.
I'm sorry.
It can delay the project. What's next actually is I had submitted a form to them, well, actually the form that you guys had signed off on here last week for the vouchers, that had to be done before the end of the month.
Saying we would commit to the 20%
And then,
of the bid, yeah.
yeah, and then trying to get, what we're trying to do here is actually get funds for, I think was the fiscal year 2022.
Yeah.
Which actually starts in July of 2021. And so mine is trying to expedite it as quickly as possible where they're actually surveying this winter. Then actually have plans out, because if we're looking at fiscal year 2022, that's July, you know, so July of 2021, that would be fiscal year 2022, we're actually potentially funds or the project actually could be started possibly the fall of 2021.
This
So
project is an 80-20,
it's an 80-20.
and that includes the engineering study, that's 46,000.
The estimates that I had included the engineering study, that form that you had signed, I included the engineering
Okay,
work and also the inspection work too.
we're not arguing whether we're gonna pay the 20% or not. We agreed to that.
Yeah.
That's,
No, we're not.
our concern is why we didn't put these out for, why we don't put them out for bids, and we probably should try to get the best deal for the county.
This, 46,000, you're saying 80% of that's gonna be picked up by the state as well?
That's correct. That's my understanding of the program.
I didn't remember that part.
That's what
This
was
question
submitted
is-
as far as that estimate. Yes.
I'm used to seeing probably, 10% of the project, they give or take, but like Don said, it's closer to 20. So as long as Wade's okay with it, I guess we'll proceed. So we don't delay the project. Based upon the recommendation of the county engineer and approval of the county.
So that I can fully wrap my head around what's,
Well, let me back up 1 minute. This says an approval of the county attorney is to form. Are you aware of this prior to this motion?
yes, but I was going off of what had historically
Okay.
been done. So if there's gonna be a question as to how these professional services are handled from this point into the future, then I think it needs to be looked into, because we don't wanna flip-flop back and forth.
Right.
If at one point in time it was done by bidding and then it was professional services, and it's gonna be an issue that may come up in the future, I'd rather have the time to look into it, talk to Wayne, research it, and then come to the board with a final answer so that it doesn't happen again. Because I understand where the board's coming from, and I understand where Wayne's coming from, so there just needs to be a final and consistent answer so that from this point forward, it's not, that this issue doesn't surface again. And I think that's a fair way to resolve it.
Do the people that control the funds in the state level have any recommendations on how to handle this?
I can check with them to see what they're, I can check with them.
I mean, they surely have an opinion, and I'd like to know what that is.
I will. Would you mind if we tabled this motion?
Okay, I just want to mention, the last direction from the board was we would take bids. And it has not ever been brought to the board's attention that I know of that has changed until now. So, yes.
Could we table this motion and come back with some answers? Fred had a good question, and I think Wade had an excellent way of handling this as well. So
When I look at it, I mean, now that you say the state's gonna pay 8% of this 46,000, I mean, the state's gonna take the design of the bridge and send it out for bids. So I'm just confused why they wouldn't want this part bid either, so, if they're paying 80% of it.
let me find out what their recommendation is.
Okay.
And then, maybe we might be able to answer those questions, and Wade has an excellent approach of handling this as well. So if you don't mind, will you table it if we're not too far in the motion?
I didn't really get started other than I did making sure Wade was aware of his approval on his motion. I didn't know he actually saw it.
It
So.
sounds to me like we need to do some more discovery before we move ahead, so table it till, I suppose you're talking about until next Monday.
Okay.
To me, that's probably the best direction to go, to do some more discovery this week.
Okay. Let's do that.
All right.
I do have construction zone, but I'd also would like to, now this one's a hand motion, hand carried motion. And this would be, as we had approved basically the contract for Kilo, to go ahead and move forward with grinding the shoulders up on Old Highway 50. We've also discussed too, the other safety measures was, one is put the centerline striping down on Old Highway 50, which they had done. Then we also had discussed about putting the channelizing, which we had approved by motion, the purchase of the cones, and then also the signs that go along with it. And so with that is, what I have done in the past for these is create, let me make sure I don't hand out everything here, Don. But I have a copy of all of it. Is what I would do is create a resolution with a drawing. And so one of them is going to be the motion, the other is going to be the drawings. So that'd be the drawing. This would be the resolution, and then this would be the motion that goes along with it. And so in the past, what we've done is, so for example, when we had done the wind farm, we had a resolution and we had a traffic control plan. We had all the signs for the wind farm out there, and they were temporary traffic control measures that was done. And so by doing that, we implemented, or we basically had a motion for a resolution for a temporary traffic control to be put up. And so what I'm trying to do here, I visited with Randy here last week. He was supportive of basically the speed limits in a construction zone of 45. Now, it would not be an active construction zone until actually Kilo is working. Then it would be an active construction zone. But up to that point, it would be warning devices that's going to add safety to that section, Old Highway 50, from 75 Highway to Farnell Road. And so as you look at that, the resolution basically would allow this to be put up and have the signs in place. And then also it would allow law enforcement to be able to enforce the 45 mile an hour as the right shoulder is closed, technically closed, during this time in which we come up, should we choose to come up with a final project come spring, more discussion later. But as we're working towards, or working up to that, what is going to be the solution for Old Highway 50? And so this would allow basically safety measures in place.
Question, you got right shoulder and right shoulder closed all the way. I noticed on I-35, when they do shoulder work on both sides, they have signs up in both directions that say both shoulders closed. That way, if you go to pass on this, you would also know that the other shoulder is also closed.
Well, there's various signs, but yes, Bob, I do understand, but I think what you're saying there is on 35 highway is you have two-way traffic or four-way traffic, and those basically are showing shoulders on both sides of two lanes going the same direction. So those shoulders are basically applicable to that traffic that's going the same direction, as this one is not. This one is basically traffic going one direction, going either east, and you have a shoulder you utilize, or you're going west and you have a shoulder to utilize, but you don't have a shoulder on the other side of the road.
Jeff, do you have a copy of this? Would you like to see this? Since in a couple of months, you're going to be looking at it, just maybe, I mean, you had a good deal on the internet deal, just, I mean, Fred's still the commissioner, I understand that.
Yeah.
So did I explain why you would not have that sign, Bob?
Right, I understand it. Well, I just think you should have to be able to look at it. Like, just his opinion. I'm not trying to take anything away from it. Just, we give information out to new commissioners.
So the map, I mean, for the public itself, the map represents or shows at the beginning of 75 highway, it says road work ahead the next 7 miles. It shows right shoulder closed, and it says reduced speed of 45 miles an hour. That would be a white sign, black lettering, that would be recognized as a regulatory type sign, 45 miles an hour. And then those signs are throughout the project from 75 highway to Fauna. And then we have the flip side, from Fauna to 75, the same signs in the respective locations. We also have lights on top of each one of the signs. And then we also have lights on top of cones, about 450 foot in spacing on the cones for the lights, but the cones themselves are 90-foot spacing. So that's what we call channelization. The cones, what you're going to find is 2 foot off of the outside edge of the road as we see it today. And then once Kilo does their work, then we're going to see it 2 foot off the edge of what they mill after they're finished. And so channelization, as we've had discussions about safety, will improve the safety along with the reduced speeds. This plan and recommendation then also moves forward in a resolution that would show the governing body to support basically the authorization for certain uniform traffic control devices to be placed on Old Highway 50 from 75 to Fauna. And so that's what you're seeing.
When they're working on, like going the westbound, there'll be a pilot car.
When they're doing, when Kilo's doing their work, no.
There'll just be the right-hand lane that's gonna do it.
What they'll do is, quick hand. What they'll do on that one is they actually will have flaggers. And so they'll move the cones out into the road, a portion of the road. They'll move traffic around the shoulder work. What it is, it's called shoulder work. And so what you can do is you can maybe move a couple thousand feet. I don't have the exact traffic plan with them at this point, but you can have a couple thousand feet at a given time that they're doing the work. So the work should all travel along with the milling operation. So you should have the blade right behind them. You should have the roller right behind them. And this should be a traveling operation as they go through. So
How far off the road will these signs be? I mean, the shoulder still be available for emergency for people if they need it?
well, that is correct. The signs are going to be placed according to the MUTCD. And so what you're going to have is everywhere from 6 foot to 12 foot. And you're also going to take in geography as well. You're going to take in basically the hills of what sight distances are, different things like that. But the idea is to have signs at each one of the intersections, so when traffic is coming out, they would be able to see the signs. But they're also going to be far enough away from those intersections that people have to be going straight to be able to see the sign as well. So all of those things the signs will be placed according to the MUTCD, and that would basically meet the requirements for safety as far as being able to avoid a hazard. An accident.
Hitting a sign.
Yeah. And then also too, your signs also are equipped for basically snap away, breakaway for those too. Of course, we wouldn't want folks to hit the sign. There are other safety measures. And same thing with those cones. Those cones are basically meant to break out of those weights. So.
Any further discussion? Do we have a number for this resolution?
That one I would ask I'd ask the clerk's office if they could come up with a resolution number.
How long does Kilo anticipate this might take?
10 days.
10 days.
Yes. They have in their, as you'll find in their bid packet, it was 10 days. But it's starting actually rather late. I think it was the 22nd or 23rd of November. Towards the end of the month.
What's the resolution number?
Well, if you'd like, the
further discussion on it. 50 for me would be, even after Kellogg does these shoulders, it's still gonna be a maintenance issue for the county. Bring those shoulders back up as the time goes on, raining.
That's been a problem with the narrow road all along. That was one of the reasons why, I wanted to get the road widened, was basically, we're constantly having where, the edges, were, edge drop-offs per se. What you'd have is the fine material would blow away when the traffic blows across that edge.
I get that, but I guess for FYI for the rest of the commission as well as general public, that just because we do this doesn't mean the cost associated with this stretch of highway goes away. You've got constant maintenance, so.
There's gonna be constant maintenance on the project.
Yeah. Well, there, we need to make a motion, so she has to help me.
As, if you'd like, we can work into construction zone, if you want to just visit about construction zone.
Yeah, I assume I need a number to put in there if I'm gonna make a motion.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. No, you would. I didn't know.
She's getting there. She's hoping I'll go there, so it'll be just a second.
Seems like the last resolution number I had was 860.
I believe that is true.
You got a better memory than I do, Don.
Probably a lot.
Yeah, that's for your construction now.
Well, what we have is, they'll be working on, the Matthias Lake project over there on the precast structure. They'll be here last week. The weather did not allow a lot of progress, in there, but we'll be setting the wings, this week. We're also too is looking at, doing the ditching, continuing the ditching that we have in that area. Seeding as well. Pothole patching, we do have, access to some hot mix. And so, we're going to be placing some hot mix throughout various locations in the county. One of them actually is the one that we talked about, a joint venture with the Corps of Engineers. This would be the one that's on the downside of the ramp. That would be the section that's been basically with gravel. Corps of Engineers is partnering. They're doing the work as far as excavation, about 4 inches of that. And they're also setting the barricades. And then we're coming back Wednesday to put the hot mix asphalt in. So that's going to be one of the projects. We're boom mowing as we can. And then also normal road maintenance, ditch cleaning, and sign maintenance. So those are the activities that we are proposing for a construction zone. One of the talking points is as well was basically as you have a special issue check. One of the talking points, the special issue check, is closing out the project for PBX. This is the contract. The contract is complete. The punch list was completed several weeks back. With all the change orders that was basically added, the original contract was $1,129,491. With the change orders that was added through this process, we had $58,292.50, bringing what the project could have been was $1,187,783.50. But the good part about it is actually our total cost on this project is $921,516.50. So we are a couple $100,000 less than what the project actually was bid in at, what it potentially could have been. I feel it was a successful project. It made some bridges a little bit smoother. It also entailed some additional work that we didn't expect, and that was on the approaches with the asphalt. But overall, those things were resolved. And at this point, we're going to have 6 bridges that's going to have a longer lifespan because of basically the work that was done, and that was sealing and patching those spalled out areas on the bridges. So throughout the whole process that we saw. And so as you're gonna finalize that check, the total bill for those 6 bridges was $921,516.
That's $266,000 less than we were expecting, so
That's
that's
correct.
pretty good. I don't know if you call that a savings or not, but that's good information.
You got numbers, Denise?
No, she's still with a voter. We're very short-handed at the moment. Angie and Jessica are out delivering voting equipment. We put through 1,300 people through that room in the last week. And as soon as she gets done with that voter, she's gonna text me a number.
So with all of that, that's my report.
It shouldn't be very long as soon as she's done with that voter.
Well,
Oh, we did have a call out.
we can do, once we get a number, we can do this after roundtable, make this motion.
Okay.
I'm assuming you don't have to be here for that to happen.
If you're okay with it?
I'm fine with it.
Nobody's objecting to the intent of the motion, the resolution?
Yeah, we'll just, when we get it, while we're in a roundtable and whatnot, we'll run through it once we get a number.
Okay, that'll work. Thank you. Call out, we had a call out on Sunday. We had a stop sign that was basically removed. Vandalism at this point, art conclusion, 10th and Fauna. And so, that was a call out. All right.
So we make this motion, once we got a number, we can do it after roundtable or something. I'm assuming he doesn't have to be here present to, when we make this motion, so just as long as you're aware that we do.
Okay. We'll be setting up, probably everything tomorrow for the most part within the next few days on that one. And, so how's my time?
Well, we're ready for break. You went over 10 minutes.
Wasn't too long.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
What's that?
You want to take a break before roundtable? I'm gonna go in and do it.
I'm fine for it. But thank you.
So you're,
Sure you don't wanna,
you got executive session?
I have one, but I have several other things.
Did you see Stephen? Okay.
Bob
That's all.
wants a break.
Take the break.
That's a good question.
The resolution technically allows all that. Just makes- And all of this.
You can just send me that resolution.
Improvement. But the time that we would take away from that one, taking away from the other projects.
I'll just,
So for example, when, if we only look at one project, and you say, okay, Wayne, you and your staff go out and do this present project. Well, it takes me away from the other. See, I have 4 structures that I have to do design for right now. I have, on Matthias Lake, I have one that's right there between, Native and Oxon at 9.5. I have another one at 9.5 and Oxon. Then I have a driveway at Native 3. Then I have a structure at Fifth Road between C and D.
Commission, nobody told me shit.
That's 4 structures alone I set up design for. Then we have to order all the steel. I mean, what's that?
Yeah. You want to sign it?
I don't know if they are or not. The people in my office, yeah. Which is minimum overall. And so, I mean, at this point, everything we can do, very much, I understand that. The 6 bridges was the earliest, was designed for the 3.
Well, it's just gonna affect those costs. No, I understand that. which I didn't realize he was already designing, bridges in that county. Now, those are bridges that our county people are doing all the work on. Now, this one's for the state,
No, because once again, what you do there is basically, you're using your forces that can be used someplace else. Right. Then the other side is what they call, it's not on-call services. They will not reimburse you as a county to do the work on your force service, force account. They will not pay you for the force accounts. Okay, now there is an option in there that you can say, we're gonna do X amount through a force account. And there are times when they will accept it. But the other side is too, you're taking some of that state money, and what they're wanting to do is stimulate the economy. Okay, so to stimulate the economy, they want basically outside consultants, not the counties doing the work. They don't want to be paying the county for what the taxpayers are paying the employees to be doing work. And so that's what some
Yeah,
of
that makes sense. That makes sense. That's just a question I had, you know.
No, the questions need to be asked. I mean, that's what.
Well, that's what
But, you know, when you take a look at our, like our 2020 construction budget, all of those are ours. I list where we have a consultant working on, but all the others are done in-house. So we do our own surveying, do our own engineering on all these projects.
Well, I mean, that's good. I mean, I didn't know it, you know.
But, you know, not every year that, you know, you're designing the bridge, there's sometimes you're doing maintenance on things. You know, that's the other side of it.
Those country roads.
And so,
I know it.
and
They did.
a lot of our focus is on our focus. Because what I reported to them, we only have 2 bridges that are below 50 efficiency, federal funds are a lot of. The other bridges I have are above 50, some of them are just hovering right around the 50, not very many. But still, you won't get any federal funds. The only 2 bridges I have is this one, 6A, and then the other one is 102, which is right next to Collins, Steve Collins. And they don't want to do that. For that amount, I can get federal funds.
Now, have you got anything in the plans for that one for 22nd and south of mile in the valley?
At this point, I don't know.
That is probably one of the most narrowest bridges up in that area. And it's a pretty highly traveled road because a lot of people come down 22nd and then they go down to John Redmond.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Sure.
Country Creek.
Oh, okay.
But there is quite hard to put, you know, it is very narrow square.
Now, is this on the asphalt road at 22nd?
No, this is south of 22nd mile.
Okay.
So it's right down, you got our place where the old quarry was, you go to the next mile, which is 19th, when you go down the hill, it's right at the bottom of that hill. You start at, in the back.
Okay.
On the right side, head off,
Okay.
that's that bridge there is.
Okay. Well,
A lot of water runs.
When it looks good.
I mean, I've seen it.
Is that what you were?
Yep,
Couldn't see
I like it.
anything,
right.
you know, so. Well, you know where we was at, we did in Roseland,
Mm-hmm.
just south.
I seen Don stop in.
Just south of. Well, yeah, that, we should be getting our bridge files back, here shortly. And then once we do, what we're gonna do then is we'll take a list and go through, what they're making.
I assume he knows that
And we'll go through all of that.
10-minute break. I got tied up in conversation.
Big county, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like you say, a lot of people don't see all what we do. but our staff.
I don't know.
And the idea
You
is
take
to try to
I mean, the way to be there for us.
was providing right for those alternative entities. And so, we have good roads, we have good structures.
We're back in.
Just happen.
We're back? Okay.
To my knowledge, there's, everybody's working on it over the road.
And, make that happen. So that's where we're at. Yeah, most of those, like the force accounts, do all of it ourselves.
Gentlemen, we're back in session. Thank you.
Yes.
I will be requesting an executive session, but I'll do that, guys. So item number 1, as requested, the topic that came up last week that I brought up was vacation time and how that will potentially affect the max accumulation under county policy, section 8.4. The suggestion was to set up a department head meeting and have everybody provide their input and feedback. That occurred Friday. I think all but one department head appeared. We had actually, in the short amount of time that it was put together, we had an exceptional turnout from the county department heads or their representatives. A very healthy discussion about what that meant and what the recommendations would be. And on behalf of all the department heads, the recommendation, the consensus was to request the board to allow carryover to be used within 6 months of the next calendar year, not to pay out. I don't think that idea was very popular. So with that being said, another county, I just have it as an example so I can read it. And it's not exactly applicable to this, but the wording may make sense, and it's specifically a section that deals with carryover. Employees who are unable to use accrued vacation time, which is above the carryover limits, may be allowed to carry they may have the following number of hours over into the first 6 months of the next year. I've not created a proposed policy amendment to our county policy because to me that's putting the cart before the horse. It's something that I think is still in the discussion and dialogue phase, and that needs to be recommended to the board, and then the board agree to move forward, and then once that occurs, then I can put something in writing to present to the board. If it's not a popular idea, or if it's something that the board doesn't want to do, then I don't want to take the time or waste the time in putting wording together. But I do recommend that that's what this board considered. I think under the circumstances based on what's occurred this calendar year, that it be an exception that's added to the current policy for vacation time, and the wording that would be included that it relates to the COVID-19 2020 pandemic, and because of the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic and the inability of county employees to use their vacation time as they would otherwise use it, but they'd be allowed to carry over any excess time for the first 6 months into 2021, and it would have to be used in that time period. So,
Any discussion?
I think that's a reasonable approach.
I concur.
You know, I concur and I don't concur. And there's not probably a perfect answer to it. I went through, what we were given last week, and the last thing I even want to think about is paying for unused overtime or unused vacation, either half-time or either half-day. I think that's totally out. We got 46 employees that have either somewhere less than 40 hours carry over compared to what they're gonna be receiving, just 12/31. And there's 23 employees, it's less than 40 hours yet to use. To me, that would be an issue to get used up in the next 2 months. There's another 16 employees between 40 and 80 hours. And to me, there's probably not much reason why that couldn't be used. We do have 7 employees that's got over 80 hours projected, if they don't use any more, over 12, as of 12/31. And 6 of them are in the road and bridge, which probably hadn't been affected too much by the COVID virus. You know, I know we're here to work with our employees. I fully respect that. We've got a policy that's been in place for years. It's very workable. And I'm not sure the virus has caused as much of an issue and delay of taking vacation as what's been brought up. In fact, the numbers don't say that. But you know, I'll support whatever the commission would like to do. I know the virus has caused some issues unexpectedly, and hopefully this will be the last time for it, although we definitely haven't seen the last of it. But of the employees that's affected by carryover over and above what they're allowed as of 12/31, 20 of the 46 is road and bridge. And then there's another 6, 7, 8 in the sheriff's department and jail. So the majority of them is in 2 departments. But I just wanted to, with me looking at the numbers, the virus hasn't caused the issue that we're looking, to me, to the extent that we kind of thought it might have been after I got a chance to break all this out.
So I'll maybe have you look at it through a different vantage point. And I don't have the right answer or the wrong answer. I'm just bringing it forward so it can be addressed. It's something that was brought up to me. Since I brought it up to the board, I've had several employees send me messages or stop me saying, thank you, I was concerned about that. I think it needs to be addressed, whatever way. And it's collectively the board's decision in the end. But I would ask you to think about what is the definition of a vacation. Because if a vacation is purely taking time off, and wherever you go, that's considered a vacation, then maybe it's not that big a deal. But for some, a vacation means leaving, it's not a staycation. And if you don't know what I mean by staycation is taking time off and staying at home to work around the house or do things at home. A vacation, for some people by definition, is to leave this area, go somewhere typically warm or just get away, get a mental health reprieve, and then go back. And if employees of the county have not been able to do that, and that's what their typical plan is or what they've done historically, then to have them not be able to take advantage of that, and they probably haven't because of COVID, because I know some have, and that's their choice. Some haven't, but some did not want to go somewhere where there might be a spike in COVID where they would come back and then immediately placed in quarantine. And I think that is something that needs to be taken into consideration. But this is not a typical year. This is not everything that's happened with COVID. I understand where you're coming from and what you're saying. And maybe it depends on the definition of what you see as vacation.
I expected the numbers to be much larger, maybe not much, but quite a bit larger than what we're actually seeing. And I fully realize, we're in uncharted waters right now with the virus. We're going to continue to be under that uncharted water probably for several months. But like I said, I can support you know, like I said, 6 months, like you suggested. But I don't want this open up to be an issue every year thereafter if something comes up.
Sure.
Because our policy is everybody's totally aware of our vacation policy. I'll guarantee they know how many days they got coming. And the majority of all of them have had the opportunity to take those vacations. Like I said, half of them's in 2 departments. So,
And if you say, use it or lose it, they'll make the decision whether to use it, and that's well within the board's authority.
back in January and February, before the virus started becoming an issue, you know, they knew very well at that time, they either had to take it or lose it. How these numbers compare to an ordinary year, we don't know. I haven't seen those numbers. Were they, or more numbers here or less numbers, we don't know. I was kind of surprised it wasn't a lot more numbers than what we were showing.
I think that this paper in a sense is misleading because a lot of our employees, I think, wait towards the holidays to take more of their time off. So I think after that, we're not going to have near the numbers that you're seeing now that people are wanting to carry over. I think
I think a lot of it will be used.
they will be used.
I think a lot of it will be used, especially those that's got 40 hours or less, there's 23 of them. That's half of our number. And in between 40 and 50 hours, there's another 6 people there. So we've got 60% of our people that's under 50 hours. So it shouldn't be much trouble to use it between now and 12/31.
And I'll relate something you said about the COVID. That, yeah, so we're making changes, but I also feel like those people that their vacations were always to the Bahamas or somewhere should have maybe realized this year that maybe they need to help make changes too in some of this stuff. It's not just the board, the county needs to make changes. Maybe some of the employees need to make some changes. But I think the numbers are going to be a whole lot less when it gets down to it. But I do agree the 6 months is probably the route to go for the ones that's necessity.
So that's the consensus and the direction. I'll put something in writing to present that will be an asterisk or a COVID-related policy exception that is specific to the 2021 calendar years.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll put something together and bring that back. Second thing is, Lisa from McGrath had contacted me last week, and during our conversation, it was mentioned that she was almost ready and basically ready to present to the board the findings and recommendations related to the compensation classification study. She has selected, or is going to be requesting, that she be placed on the agenda for November 23rd, which is in 2 weeks, to present. She'd like an hour to present. So that way, if there are any questions related to what her presentation entails, then that can be done. So I would request that she be placed on the agenda for the 23rd, that she be last, so that if there's anything, I don't want it to go longer than an hour and then it pull into somebody else's allotted time. So whatever that looks like, when that agenda is put out, then if it needs to be modified to add her further on, because she'll be traveling from a couple hours away, so I think we need to accommodate her time the best we can. The second part is, she was concerned about whether she could be able to have what the intent was of the commission to have both the compensation and classification study completed and presented to the board, which was indicated previously that would be at the latest in November, and will be in November. But there's also the second component of the HR audit and evaluation, and my conversation with her was the more important one at this point is the compensation classification study, and the HR audit and evaluation can come at a later date and time. And that's what I presented to her, and that was my assumption, and my understanding of what had been discussed previously. And I don't think it'll come too far after that November date, but it'll come at a later date and time. So I know the board wanted an update on that particular aspect. There will be written documentation from Lisa that she recommended, that she will be presenting from, and that will contain her findings and recommendations so that the board can have it in a written format. I don't exactly know what that looks like, if that's the executive summary or whatnot, but that's whatever she presents, you'll have it. And then I would encourage you to review it, and if you have questions, things you want answered or clarified or don't make sense, that you have those questions ready for Lisa. So. I'm going to, at this point, request a motion for the commission to recess into executive session for consultation with the county counselor in reference to providing legal advice. That legal advice for the specific purpose of discussing county policy in reference to the legal ramifications and implications for on-call wages. There was a conversation last week, that an initial dialogue about on-call reimbursement to different county employees. Specifically, we talked about the health department and nurses that are on call, but after I looked into it a little bit further, I think before we go any further, I need to talk about the legal implications and provide some legal background before we move forward with any further dialogue. So 15 minutes, myself and the board.
A motion to enter an executive session with Wade and the commission for 15 minutes.
I'll make the motion.
And Lou. Second. Don second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're going at 10:27, come out, or excuse me, we're going at 10:30, come out at 10:45.
Donnie, you were asking for a regional. I did come up with one.
Oh, you did?
They got started, so
Okay,
we'll use it as original.
okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Hello. Good. Tell Angie, thank you. I was just kind of putting that one together real quick this morning, trying to get the map done and the resolution, and
Yeah,
I apologize for the
She's
short
not
notice.
actually here. She's out delivering voting equipment,
Yeah,
her and Jessica, and then Brad and Terry, there's a line down to the lobby of voters.
yeah.
We've actually got another department person answering our phone, and I'm down here.
Well, that makes sense, because I called her early this morning, and, no answer, but obviously she's busy with the voting.
This day is almost as busy as tomorrow.
Well,
for
since
us.
it was last week, I think it was Friday, they had them lined up clear into the hall.
We've almost had 1,300 going through that room.
There's quite a few folks,
Yeah, and then we mailed out 600.
so
So we're above 25% already of the register.
compared to,
We had 44 total last election, and that was a good turnout.
oh, wow.
And we're gonna way surpass that.
Well, that's good, that's good, that's what we should be doing, voting.
There's some here, yeah, there's some, well, a lot of people aren't necessarily afraid they're gonna get COVID, but they're afraid they're gonna be quarantined and not be able to get to vote. That's what they're telling us. We're gonna go to a party or something, and they're gonna say, oh, so-and-so got COVID, you have to be quarantined for 2 weeks, and they're gonna miss vote.
Talked to somebody right before I came in, just got quarantined.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
They don't have.
Yeah.
Around.
well, and that was Jamie, she went to, She's really good friends with Ashley Hollier. They have been since high school, and she went to her son's birthday party and sat next to Jim Weeks, and then he got COVID, and she was quarantined for 2 weeks. Is that still on? Yeah. I thought he shut that off when they went into executive. Anyway, so then she was quarantined for 2 weeks.
So we can vote today
Until noon.
until noon. Then after that, we have to go to our precinct. Road, okay.
We were open last week from 8 to 6.
And they open up, say, Waverly, for example, mine was
7.
7,
to 7.
sign section from 7 o'clock in the morning. All right. I'll probably do it then. I can't see being quarantined until now.
Okay. And they've made allowances.
You got a 6-foot stick, don't you? Here.
Um,
Have a good day.
See you.
All right.
Like today, someone was quarantined and they had a person, they filled out a ballot application and saying they need help. And then they get a ballot taken home to them and they vote and put it in there and seal it and sign that they asked for help and who they gave that help to. And, yeah, they're getting the vote. We've even done curbside service. We went out to the curb. We took a ballot to someone. We bent over backwards to make sure people could vote.
Yeah, either it's curbside.
Yeah. And the ladies were trained in their training that they can actually take the whole pad out. 2 people have to go. Yeah, when they first called and said that. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's the.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
But instead of coming in later, like you know, I should have, about 6:30 or so.
Yeah, there's not more.
It's okay. That's late, right? Stores, whatever.
I can't believe we almost hit 13 people. That is a lot.
But you can run lots of bulls.
Yeah.
I can't believe the Secretary of State estimated 70%.
That means we have a lot more to go. It's went really well though.
You said you think 1,300 people?
Almost. They're at like 1285 right now, and there's a line. We'll hit 1300 before noon, no problem. I think. I don't think there's any way we won't hit 1300 before
When I
noon.
walked up there, like, long ago, there was starting to be temple by one.
Yeah, when I went up there to get that, it was quite enough. It helps if we have that kind of, that you need that information ahead of time, I'll get everybody on that number. 861.
I think 860 was the interim emergency. That's 2 weeks ago.
I think we'll run out and see if they need a break to go to the restroom or something. I can handle a couple of loaders while they take a break.
Is it just the red light, no light?
Hey there.
Oh, the real light.
Yeah.
It's a real. Not a check-in. Right, that's what they call the real light.
Oh, yeah.
Where you at?
Okay.
Came up out of the ditch, but stopped. They probably didn't know, like, I'm gonna check in. You were, she thought I was working.
Okay. You bet. Bye-bye.
I had to be with you. Didn't go in the camp right now. You got one? Yeah. $80,000 just to. Oh, yeah, I mean, if you can't, it's such a recondition on a semi for less than that. You pay for things. Both doors, they replace all the time, all the doors. And then you really call them the trash. And then, $800. What is it? But that's, so we have a socket and then it's a big plastic clothing. I've never done that. I think I get that thing. Oh, shit.
I gave them a break. But I didn't want them to. We're gonna hit 1,300 before we do, we're almost at 1,200 now. Yeah. And if you're in line by me, you still have, and so. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, you know what, when we got here, I don't give her right at the either, I mean, I give her like 10 till, because we never set up. There was somebody really looking at it. I should have, there was two people. Yeah, you can start, you just can't finish it. And then you can't run any reports until after 7.
I'll be there for that first report.
They called and said that we were having some mediators and kind of observe our polls mentally. Great. And then I found out it's Mark. And I went, oh, okay, no biggie. It's Mark. Mark's not gonna be looking at me and saying, what do you do?
I usually just go sit in the chair.
And then he goes, is that report for me? Yeah, there.
I just don't get it. Maybe I'm dumb, but I can't. Yeah, exactly. I heard
So you're gonna implement tonight today.
well, here today.
We started on the school and I said,
I guarantee I won't be notified. What's going to happen?
why do I need to go to that?
We don't know anything.
That's your brother. Come on, guys.
That's what you do.
Today?
But we played that part. The first time. I think. We were just never going to see it on.
There's still a line out there.
Going away anytime soon.
Well, I knew. Well, the ones in line said it was
We've
still.
got a
No,
resolution number there.
Yes, 861,
Pardon?
861.
For some reason, I second those.
We'll wait for Fred to get back.
they don't use proclamation numbers, just resolution numbers.
Bless you.
Hey, we're all back. You have anything else, Wade?
Just a couple. I think just to maybe have at least some immediate closures to the topic that I requested we go into executive session on. The wage, on-call, pay issue, still under investigation, still in a fact-finding stage at this point. There are some legal ramifications and they need to be researched a little bit more in detail. So that no decision is being made today. No decision has been made. And, there are no recommendations. Just so if anybody is concerned or wants to know what's happening on the outside. Moving on to the next thing, I was requested to research and review and attempt to put together a proclamation in reference to county election officers. And I think Tim is the one who initially brought the topic up and was wanting the board to consider making November 2020 county election worker month. And I have some proposed proclamation that would request, well, I think it'd be Tim who need to do it, but I have something that got put together.
And I took a good look at it and I like it. Would ask the board if you consider it. To thank the poll workers in November.
So the only thing that I can remember about proclamations is whose signatures went on the proclamation. So that's the only thing that I have everybody on it right now. And I don't know if it matters one way or another, but is that something you want me to hand to you? How would you like me to handle this particular issue?
It was Tim's deal, so we'll let him take the lead on it. Is that all right?
You want it read? How do you want
You want to read it? Out loud?
You can.
Sure. Sorry. Or you can.
We will let you talk.
Not sure about how to go about this myself either. Lots of whereases.
That's what happens when you get an attorney involved.
Do you want me to make copies for it? Does everybody want a copy? No.
And I only had the one copy. Does everybody want a copy so they can review it and see the wording?
No, but usually when someone brings one into us, they read it to us and then we go from there.
Do you want me to read it?
I'll get me out of going whereas.
I mean, that's what we usually do, is whoever brings it in. I mean, somebody from outside comes in, they read it to us and then we go from there.
I always like to scan over it first so that I don't get lost in the.
It's sort of, within, I guess. So this is a proclamation. There is no proclamation number, but in Coffee County, Kansas, dealing with County Election Worker Month. And bear with me, there are a lot of whereas. But whereas Article 5, Section 1 of the Kansas Constitution provides that every citizen of the United States who has attained the age of 18 years and who resides in the voting area in which he or she seeks to vote shall be deemed a qualified elector. Whereas pursuant to KSA 25-1010 and KSA 25-2502A, Kansas law provides that eligible voters have a right to cast a vote on the Tuesday succeeding the first Monday in November of each even-numbered year, and that a general election shall be held to elect all eligible candidates for all national, state, county, and local offices. Whereas pursuant to KSA 25-2302, it is the duty of all legally qualified voters to register to vote and to vote in the election held within the voting district where such voter resides. Whereas the general election for the calendar year 2020 is to be conducted in an open, safe, and secure manner so that all legally qualified voters can proceed to the polls to cast a vote in person during early voting or on election day for the November 3rd, 2020 election. Whereas pursuant to KSA 25-2303, the county election officer is responsible for administering the statutory provisions related to elections within the county and with the assistance of the deputy county election officer. Whereas pursuant to KSA 25-2801, election board judges and clerks are appointed by the county election officer subject to the qualifications listed within KSA 25-2804B, and each judge and clerk agrees to discharge the duties of judge or clerk at such election faithfully, honestly, and in accordance to law. See KSA 25-2807C. The county election officer may also appoint such persons who are at least 16 years of age to serve as election judges or clerks if such persons meet all other requirements for qualifications of an elector, but no more than one person under the age of 18 may be appointed to each election board. See KSA 25-2804B. Whereas county election workers are a direct extension of the county election office on election day and are responsible for ensuring access to a safe and secure location for each and every citizen to exercise their unfettered right to vote. And whereas the governing body of Coffee County, Kansas expresses recognition, gratitude, support, and appreciation to the men and women who volunteer and serve as county election workers during and in support of the right to vote. The support is especially noted and observed during the general election for the calendar year 2020, and as their dedication and service is necessary and ongoing during early voting and on the November 3rd, 2020 election day. Now therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Coffee County, Kansas do proclaim November 2020 as County Election Worker Month in Coffee County. Call upon all citizens to take time this month to express gratitude and appreciation to the election workers, volunteers, and officials responsible for ensuring the safety and security of each and every citizen and their right to vote. Adopted this second day of November 2020 by the Board of County Commissioners of Coffee County, Kansas.
I'm glad as you and not me.
There's a lot of whereas.
So that's what it says.
So we need to make a motion to do so, claiming November 2020 is County Election Worker Month.
I'll make the motion.
Tim has made a motion.
Second.
Fred seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
And that's what you wanted, right?
Yes.
Is this our copy to sign as well?
Yep. That's the only copy there is right now.
You want today's date in
So the last thing I have is a couple quotes, and especially relevant and important because of what we have, I guess, in relation to the proclamation and reference to the election that is final tomorrow. So 2 quotes. The first one is from John F. Kennedy in his inaugural address on January 20, 1961. Of note, it was former President Dwight D. Eisenhower, former Vice President Richard Nixon were there and present, and it's the famous speech in which JFK has the quote that everybody knows: ask not what you can do for your country, or ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. But that's not the quote. The quote is this, and with as divisive and headbutting as it can be locally, at the state level, at the national level, I think this quote is probably pretty relevant. Let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness, and sincerity is always subject to proof. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. Let both sides explore what problems unite us instead of belaboring those problems which divide us. So that's a short quote. This one is actually from John F. Kennedy, and probably the more relevant, more important quote that I'll provide today. And it's John F. Kennedy, who at this point in time, was the president-elect, and he delivered to a joint convention of the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on January 9, 1961. For of those to whom much is given, much is required. And when at some future date, the High Court of History sits in judgment on each one of us, reporting whether in our brief span of service we fulfilled our responsibilities, our success or failure, and whatever office we may hold, will be measured by the answers to 4 questions. First, were we truly men and women of courage, with the courage to stand up to one's enemies, and the courage to stand up when necessary to one's associates, the courage to resist public pressure, as well as private greed? Secondly, were we truly men and women of judgment, with perceptive judgment of the future as well as of the past, of our own mistakes as well as the mistakes of others, with enough wisdom to know that we did not know, and enough candor to admit it? Third, were we truly men and women of integrity, men who never ran out on either the principles in which they believed or the people who believed in them, men who believed in us, men who neither financial gain nor political ambition could ever divert from the fulfillment of our sacred trust? Finally, were we truly men and women of dedication, with an honor mortgaged to no single individual or group, and compromised by no private obligation or aim, but devoted solely to serving the public good and the national interest? Courage, judgment, integrity, dedication. These are the historic qualities. And these are the qualities which, with God's help, will characterize our government's conduct in years that lie ahead. Humbly, I ask His help in that undertaking, but aware that on earth His will be worked by men. I ask for your help and your prayers. So, I think important for us, even at this local level: courage, judgment, integrity, dedication. That's all I got.
Thank you, Wade. Denise?
Just advanced voting ends at noon today, and the polls are open 7 to 7 tomorrow.
Get out and vote.
Fred?
Did we get that resolution number?
We did, I guess I can go ahead and do that now, huh? It's a resolution 2020-60, establishing traffic control on 50. Based upon the recommendation of the county engineer and county attorney as to form, move to approve resolution number 861 to establish a traffic control plan for a 7-mile section of Old 50 and 75 highway to Farm Road as to enhance public safety for establishing maximum speed limits and place channeling devices and other traffic control signs at various locations as shown in traffic control plan for Old Highway 50 project. Guess I'll move.
All second.
Tim is second. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Anything else, Fred?
No, thank you.
Bob?
No, that's nothing else.
Donna passed out packets with the applications for emergency management. Do we want to schedule some sort of session next Monday to all review our opinions, or do you want to make a special meeting later on this week?
I'd like to take a couple of weeks and look at it. We've got quite a few applicants there. I'd like to take some time and look at a little research on some of them.
Take you more than a week?
I would like to, yes.
Okay.
I think this is kind of a busy week, so.
Okay, all right. So, we want to call a special meeting for that, or you want to do it on Monday? Look at my calendar here.
I'm fine with the Monday.
Okay, 16. That'll be 2 weeks. Okay. We can do it after our regular meeting.
That'll work for me.
That's about all I had to bring up. Make sure we all knew we had our applications, be sure to read them over and be prepared for the 16th. Donna?
Wayne wanted me to pass along that he has meetings set up for all of the community improvement plans. And he said he emailed it to me, and I will forward that out to all your emails.
Okay.
And drive-through clinic at Lebo for flu shots at the fire station from 5:30 to 6:30 tonight. That's all I have.
Bob's got something.
I think Lindsay Byer will probably be in sometime to tell us, but I think November the 19th is the day scheduled for the county health fair, which would be right here in these rooms.
Okay. Anything else? We're adjourned at 11:05.
He was just saying